everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to Mystical Munchies featuring the official Catan Cookbook. The Harbor Master's fish and chips would have worked better if I went a little lighter on the beer last week, but now we're on to the dessert, Harbor homemade fudge bricks. First up, let's tell the story. Nothing says celebration like a pile of homemade fudge, whether it's holiday season, a game night, or just a special moment in life worth enjoying. And this quick, no-fail recipe is the perfect way to enjoy some chocolatey goodness without a lot of work or energy, and they're ready in pretty much the time it takes for them to cool off. Well, we'll find out about all of that because the ingredients for the fudge are waiting for us over at the table, so let's move in that direction. In order to make this recipe, we're going to need 3 cups of semi-sweet chocolate chips, a 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and optionally we can use a half cup of finely chopped toasted pecans divided. So let's move into the kitchen and start putting this recipe together. Yes, we're over the stove. The first thing we need to do is we need to combine the first 3 ingredients. Let me just grab the cookbook here so I've got the recipe handy. We want to make sure I add the pecans at the right point. Okay, so now we're going to start off by combining the chocolate chips. And I will definitely need more of these. I've got my 1.5 cup measuring cup that I've got over here. I'm using that to measure out what I've got for the chocolate chips. Easy does it. There's 1. And we'll get into the second one, but this one should end up topping out the should end up topping out the second cup and a half. Okay, that'll do nicely. Which means we can cover that and put it back in the fridge. And then that can go in. The 1.5 cup measuring cup can go toward the dishes. I'm going to grab my 1/2 cup out. Now for the pecans while I'm thinking about it. Then we'll take our can of sweetened condensed milk. I'm going to go turn off the light. I was just turning off the light at my desk. So anyway, now we're going to open the sweetened condensed milk. Good thing I grabbed a spatula here. Hopefully this won't take too long to siphon off. Okay. Alright, I think that's probably about as much of that can as I'm going to get out. So those can go toward the dishes. And we need our 2 tablespoons, or not 2 tablespoons, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Okay. So now we're going to take all of that and melt it over low heat. Make sure I've got the right burner, which I should because I was just using this one to prepare my dinner in the crock pot earlier this morning. So that will be simmering for quite a while, and good, the crock pot's going. Now, as the melt here is the most critical part of the recipe, we are going to watch this in real time. It should only take about over low heat, it should only take about 5 minutes for everything to melt and mix. So it shouldn't be too bad, but again, given that the melt is the sensitive part of the recipe, we are going to watch it here in real time. Meanwhile, while we're waiting for the chocolate chips to melt, I'm going to start preparing the next step of the recipe. So while the chocolate chips are melting, I'm going to take my 9x9 square pan and I'm going to go ahead and line that. The recipe says you can use either plastic wrap or parchment paper to line that. I'm going to use parchment paper. Okay. Okay. All right, that will probably have to... Actually, I'm putting the parchment paper away. And similar to what I did last week when I was having problems lining the cookie sheet with parchment paper, I'm going to grab some bag clips to help me clamp the parchment paper into place, and hopefully it'll set for me. Especially if we put that down a little bit more. I'd probably get something else heavy to put down on top of this, which wouldn't be a terrible idea, most likely, although it seems that just doing this and clamping it down with these clips, I think even that's helping already. I'm going to grab another spatula out since I'm sure I'll be scraping the edges and the bottom of this pan as well. I also want a couple more clips. Tell me hold down the parchment paper until I'm ready for it. Perfect. Okay. Looks like the chocolate is starting to melt, which is good. I'm also going to grab a bag so I can store the pecan pieces. Because I'm going to go ahead and get the pecan pieces ready to go now while I'm thinking about it. So I've got the pecan pieces here. Stir this and keep the melt moving along. Meanwhile, I'm going to pull out half a cup of the pecan pieces. Okay. Then the pecan pieces can get bagged and those can go back up. And then once I'm ready to use the pecans, I'll pull a tablespoon of those off to use for topping later. Wow, that's kind of hurting my hand a little bit, but nature of the beast when we're trying to watch this melt in real time. Depending on how this recipe turns out too, another idea I might eventually want to run with potentially is maybe doing this with white chocolate, because if you remember my no-bake, I don't know if you guys remember my no-bake cookies that were both the very first episode of Mystical Munchies I ever did, along with the second to last recipe of Redo Month I did back in September of last year, because last month I was out of the official Diablo, this past September I was out of the official Diablo cookbook. But when I did Redo Month in September 2023, I did my no-bake cookies recipe again. That turned out to be very good, and I think I might have mentioned in that episode that I also have a version of the no-bake cookies that I've done with white chocolate powder. So I'm wondering if this fudge turns out, it may be worth doing this with white chocolate chips as well. But I'm getting more than a little ahead of myself here. Fortunately, the chocolate chips here are starting to melt. So it should be another couple of minutes before we have the chocolate finally completely melts. Hopefully. Man alive, does that hurt my hand. Maybe I'll turn the heat up just a little bit to about a 2, but I don't want to go too far with the heat. I'm also trying to make sure as much as I can the chocolate doesn't scorch in here. I'm going to go grab my drink as well, so bear with me a second. Hopefully when I take all the clips out of the off the 9x9 pan, everything will still adhere. I'm going to try to flatten the paper out as much as I can here, though. Ay, ay, ay. Yes, I know this is a very slow part of Mystical Munchies, but I've talked about it before, where when something seems pivotal to a recipe, I like to watch it in real time. There's less of a chance I'll screw the recipe up. Note that I didn't say I won't screw the recipe up, because there's always a chance of that happening. That's just an inherent risk anytime you start cooking in the kitchen. There's less of a chance that we'll screw the recipe up. Okay, looks like the chocolate is just about all the way melted here. Okay, so yeah, now we're going to take this off the heat. Since now it looks like it's melted, I'll use the back burner there. And then here I'm going to partition off a tablespoon of the pecans so I can use them for topping later. Okay. That should work. And then we'll add the rest of the pecans into the chocolate mixture since we are using them. I was expecting this to be a little bit more liquidy than that. Okay. I think that's as mixed in as I'm going to get, so now we'll move over to the counter for the next step. Unfortunately, the clips were really no help in getting the parchment paper to adhere, so we'll do the best we can. But now what we want to do is now we're going to take the fudge mixture and we're going to put it into the pan that we've lined with parchment paper. Okay, we'll get the spatula over here to see if I can spread this out a little bit so we get more space coverage on the fudge. I have a feeling this is going to have a consistency more like brownies, but I also want to see if I can scrape the spoon and the pot and the pan. Get a little bit more in here. Okay. So now we'll bring the pan back over to see if we can scrape that. Not too bad. Okay, so now what we're going to do, now we're going to top it with the remaining pecans. So I've got a tablespoon of those right here. Okay. Now we're going to refrigerate that for at least an hour and a half or until they're fully set. So by the power of editing, we'll be back in about a moment. We'll be back about a moment later, but it'll actually be closer to, I would say, at least 2 to 3 hours. So I'll move this into the fridge, and then we'll move back. And then we'll come back to that a bit later. Here's a look at the fudge after it's had a couple hours to set. We can lift that clean out. We should be able to lift that out with the help of the parchment paper. Nice and easy. We'll grab a knife, cut this up. Oh, wow. This is going to be a little bit harder to cut than I think I was expecting. There we go. Okay. Well, rather than make you guys watch me struggle with this, I'll get this cut up, we'll get a couple pieces plated, and then we'll move over to my desk for the taste test. I've got a couple of pieces of the fudge here, so let's give this a taste and see what I think of it. It was a little bit harder to cut than I think I was expecting, but that's also probably due to the fact that I had it sitting in the fridge for a couple hours while I was out running errands. Anyway, let's give this a taste and see what I think. This fudge is actually really good, and now I can add homemade fudge to the list of recipes that I've made. It wasn't as nutty, I think, as I was expecting it to be, but that also, I think, comes from the having a bit of a harder time stirring it up than I was expecting with the sweetened condensed milk, because, man, I was getting some serious resistance with that. But that's probably how it was supposed to go, and that's another episode of Mystical Munchies in the books. Next week, we'll be in a new cookbook, but we'll have more on that on Thursday during Pinot with Phoenix. A lot of busy stuff coming up on the channel. Probably about an hour or so after this video goes live, we're going to be starting Conference Championship Saturday, as we'll be going over to RFK Stadium for the NFC Championship in my 1972 NFL season replay and Momentum Football. The Washington Redskins are taking on the Dallas Cowboys in that one. Then later tonight, we'll be playing the AFC Championship game as the Oakland Raiders are at Ring Central Coliseum to host the Cincinnati Bengals. Tomorrow we're playing Freeform Call of Cthulhu, continuing our story with Nick and the Serpent People. Wednesday we're playing game number 9 on my Tack Up Wargaming list as we play Tally Ho from Historic Wings. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.